Hare Krishna, Grace, VANACARI, please accept my respectful obeisances. All glories to his confounder, Charas, Divine Grace, La Prabhupada, all glories to Sri Guru and Gauranga. Hare Krishna, Prabhu, you're welcome. Can you hear me?
Hare Krishna, I say my humble obeisances, all glories to Gurudev and glories to Sri Prabhupada.
Dear devotees, Hare Krishna, welcome to Hare Krishna Africa platform, Srimad Bhagavatam Daily Discourse. Thank you all for being here today. We are very happy to have with us today our own His Grace SRIVAS VANACARI for being here with us today. So, Prabhuji, you're welcome. If you're ready, we'll put the verse on the screen and you can start.
Moment. Yeah, I think we can start.
Okay. Smasadi, Prabhu. Yes, Prabhu, you can start now.
Narayana namaskritya narachaiva narottamam devim saraswatim vyasam tato jayamudirayat nashtapraya subhadresu nityam bhagavatam sevaya bhagavati uttamasloke bhakti bhavati naistiki Om namo bhagavate vasudevaya Om namo bhagavate vasudevaya Om namo bhagavate vasudevaya. So everyone is welcome to today's Srimad Bhagavatam class. Today we are discussing from the second canto, chapter 6, entitled Purusha Shukta Confirmed. And for our today's discussion, we are treating text 38, which is on the board. Yashyavatara karmani gayantihi asmat adaya nayam vidanti tatwena tasmai bhagavate namaha. Yashyavatara karmani Gayanti asmat adaya nayam vidanti tatwena tasmat bhagavate namaha. Yasyavatara karmani gayanti asmat adaya nayam vidanti tatwena tasmat bhagavate namaha. Word for word translation. Yasya, whose? Avatara, incarnation. Karmani, activities. Gayanti, chant in glorification. He, indeed. Asmat, adaya, persons like us. Na, do not. Yam, whom vidanti know tattvena 100% as he is. Tasmai, unto him, Bhagavate, unto the personality of God as Sri Krishna, Namaha, respectful obeisances. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Translation. Let us offer our respectful obeisances unto that Supreme Personality of Godhead, whose incarnations and activities are chanted by us for glorification, though he can hardly be fully known as he is. Purport. It is said that the transcendental name, form, quality, pastimes, paraphernalia, personality, etc., cannot possibly be perceived by the gross materialistic senses. But when the senses are purified by the process of hearing, chanting, remembering, and worshiping the lotus feet of the holy deity, etc., the Lord reveals himself proportionately to the advancement of the quality of devotional service. Ye yatamam prapadyante. One should not expect the Lord to be an order-supplying agent who must be present before us as soon as we desire to see him. We must be ready to undergo the prescribed devotional duties, following the path shown by the predecessors in the disciplic succession from Brahma, Narada, and similar authorities. As the senses are progressively purified by bona fide devotional service, the Lord reveals his identity according to the spiritual advancement of the devotee. But one who is not in the line of devotional service can hardly perceive him simply by calculations and philosophical speculations. Such a hard worker can present a jugglery of words before an audience, but can never know the Supreme Personality of Godhead in his personal feature. The Lord has clearly stated in the Bhagavad Gita that one can know him only by devotional service. No one can know the Lord by any puffed up material process of challenge, but the humble devotee can please the Lord by his earnest devotional activities. Thus, the Lord reveals himself proportionately before the devotee. Lord Brahma therefore offers his respectful obeisances as a bona fide spiritual master and advises us to follow the process of Sravana and Kirtana. Simply by this process, or simply by hearing and chanting the glories of the activities of the Lord's incarnation, one can certainly see within himself the identity of the Lord. We have already discussed this subject in volume 1 of Srimad Bhagavatam in connection with this verse. Tatradadana munayo jnana varagya yuktaya pashanti atmani chatmanam bhaktya shruta grihitaya. The conclusion is that one cannot know the Supreme Personality of Godhead fully by any method, but he can be seen and felt partially by the devotional service process of hearing, chanting, etc. Om Gyana Tamiridasya Gyanan Ganashalakaya Chakshuramalitam Yena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Sri Guru Sri Yukta Padakamalam Sri Gurum Vaishnavamscha Sri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Ragunastam Vitam Tam Sanjivam Sadvetam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Sri Vishakam Vitamscha Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Tirtha Swami Iti Namine Namaste Krishna Padaya Prabhupada Asri Tatmane Sri Gaura Karuna Shakti Bhakti Tirtha Iti Namine Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Iti Namine Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvase Sasuyavadi Pasachade Satarine Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripasantubhyaivacha Patitanam Pavinibhyo Vaishnavibhyo Namo Namaha Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Pranayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namini Gauratvize Namaha Nityanando Vatutendur Vasuda Pranavalabhaha Janavir Jivita Patir Krishna Prema Prabhu Padmavati Sutta Srimam Sachirananda Purvajaha Bhavam Mata Jagat Rakta Rakta Gora Kele Varaha Advaitam Harinadvaitaram Charyam Bhakti Shamsanat Muktavataram Itam Sham Advaita Charya Shraye Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namini Gauratvize Namaha Krishnaya Vasudevaya Devaki Nandanaya Cha Nanda Gopa Kumaraya Govindaya Namo Namaha Nama Pankajanabaya Nama Pankajamaline Nama Pankajanitraya Namaste Pankajagraye Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopita Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Jayatam Surato Pango Mama Madhir Gatima Sarvaswa Padam Bhujo Radha Mandana Mohano Divyad Vrindaranya Kalpadrimada Srimad Radhagara Simhastanastau Srila Govinda Devo Prishyalibi Sevya Manosmarami Shrimam Rasa Rasarambi Vamsivata Tatastita Karusan Venuswanai Gopi Gopinata Sriyestunaha Taptakan Chana Gaurangi Radhe Brindavanishwari Mrishabhanu Sutta Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Devi Krishnamai Prokta Radhika Paradevata Sarva Lakshmi Mai Sarvam Kanti Samohini Paraha Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare Hare. Translation again. Let us offer our respectful obeisances unto that Supreme Personality of Godhead whose incarnations and activities are chanted by us for glorification, though he can hardly be fully known as he is. Mukam karoti vachalam pangum lagayete grim yat kri patamahan vande Shri Guru Dina Taranam Paramanam Madhavam Sri Chaitanya Ishwaram Akanda Mandalakaram Vyaptayina Chara Charam Tat Padam Dashitam Yena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha. So everyone is welcome to today's discussion. And before we proceed to say something for our own purification and probably for the benefit of the audience, we seek the blessings of all the Vaishnavas and Vaishnavis who are present in this class. For we know that without the mercy of the Vaishnavas, without the mercy of the devotees, it is not possible to know about Krishna. It is not possible to realize Krishna. It is not possible to associate with Krishna. So only by the causeless mercy of the devotees of the Lord that it becomes possible for even a very fallen soul like myself to have access to Srimad Bhagavatam, to have access to the process of bhakti, to have access to the association of devotees. So, the theme of our verse is that the Lord's activities, even though they are chanted for the glorification of the Lord, but they are not fully known. The glories of the Lord, even though we chant them for the glorification of the Lord, and of course for our own purification, but we can never get to the end of the glories of the Lord. We can never get to know the totality of Krishna. That is the nature of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The nature of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is that he is always expanding. He is always increasing. Ananda Buddhi Vardhanam. Everything about the Lord is always expanding. If you know some amount of knowledge about the Lord today, tomorrow, the Lord's glories, potencies, expands. So my soul, that whatever we have known cannot match up. So that is the nature of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The Lord is so wonderful that even sometimes he himself the Supreme Personality of God himself is wondering how his energies are working. He's wondering, how is it that I can expand unlimitedly? Sometimes the Lord is wondering. Sometimes the Lord is attracted by his own qualities. He's attracted to his own beauty. So therefore, it is not an easy task to understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead completely. Even when the Lord cannot understand himself, then what to speak of the living entity? It is said that Anantasesha, who is an incarnation of the Lord, and who has thousands of heads, thousands of hoods, he has been glorifying the activities of the Lord, the pastimes of the Lord, the qualities of the Lord from the dawn of creation. But up till this moment, Anantasesha has not reached the end of glorifying the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Therefore, how can we, mere Jivatmas, mere living entities, with our limited capabilities, how can we comprehend the Lord in totality? So in the purport, Srila Prabhupada mentions that it is said that the transcendental name, form, quality, pastimes, paraphernalia, personality, etc., cannot possibly be perceived by the gross materialistic senses. So, why is it that the Lord cannot be perceived by the materialistic senses? The answer is because he is in a transcendental position. Everything relating to the Lord is of transcendence. In the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Srila Krishna Das Kaviraj Goswami mentions a very interesting verse. Krishna Nam, Krishna Gun, Krishna Lila Vrinda, Krishnera Swarupa Shama Shaba Chit Ananda. What Krishna Das Kaviraj Goswami is saying is Krishna's name, Krishna Nam, Krishna Gun, Krishna's qualities, Krishna Lila Vrinda, Krishna's pastimes, his glorious pastimes, his inestimable pastimes, Krishna's form, Krishnera Sarupena, Krishna's form, they are all Sarva Chit Ananda. Sarva Chit Ananda means they are all transcendentally situated. So, since Krishna's name, since Krishna's qualities, since Krishna's pastimes, since Krishna's form are all transcendental and full of spiritual bliss, how can the materialistic senses understand? How can they perceive substance of spiritual nature? So the material senses, they do not have the ability to perceive spiritual elements. Even subtle elements is very difficult for the material senses to perceive. Elements like air, we cannot see air. We can only feel the touch of air. Element like smell, we cannot see smell. We can only perceive it with the nose. What to speak of element like the mind, we cannot see the mind. We can only perceive its effects by the function of the mind. We cannot see intelligence. We can only know there is intelligence by the activities, by the performance, the products of the intelligence. Neither can we see the false ego, ahankar. We can't see it. We can only perceive the ahankar by how the living entity reacts to circumstances, situations. So therefore, even material subtle elements is difficult for us to perceive. What to speak of perceiving transcendental elements, perceiving the transcendental qualities of the Lord, perceiving the transcendental name of the Lord. So, unless the senses are purified, unless there is a purificatory process for the senses, for the mind, for the intelligence, only then can these spiritual elements be perceived. Therefore, in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, the Nectar of Devotion, Srila Rupa Goswami says, Ata Sri Krishna Namadi na bhavat grayam indriyai sevam mokehi jivado swayam eva suparati ada. That no one can understand the transcendental nature of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. No one can understand the name, the form, the quality, the pastimes of Lord Sri Krishna through the materially contaminated senses. Only when these senses are purified, only when these senses are spiritually saturated, only when these senses are completely transformed from the material to the spiritual, can one perceive the nature of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Although the Supreme Lord is present within our hearts, Krishna is a super soul within our hearts. He is seated there within our hearts. But we cannot perceive him. That is the fact. Atramam mrigayanti adaha yukta hetubiri shwaram griya manai gunai lingai agrayam anumana mantaha. Although the Supreme Personality of Godhead can never be captured by ordinary sense perception, those situated in the human form of life, they can make an attempt. They can follow a process of purification, and the Lord will reveal himself. So even though the qualities of the Lord, the pastimes of the Lord, the name of the Lord is spiritually saturated and cannot be perceived by our material senses, but if any living entity begins to purify his senses by the process of devotional service, it is possible for the Lord to reveal himself. It is possible to understand the Lord to some degree. As Srila Prabhupada mentions in the purport, to the degree the devotee serves the Lord, to the degree the devotee surrenders to the Supreme Lord, to the degree the devotee wants to please the Lord, to that degree the Supreme Personality of Godhead reveals himself. So our process is a process of revelation. Krishna reveals himself according to the sincerity of the practitioner. Krishna reveals himself according to the purity of the practitioner. Krishna reveals himself according to the dedication of the practitioner. Therefore, the Srimad Bhagavatam says that, "O Lord, your transcendental name, form, etc., are not ascertained by those who merely speculate on the path of imagination. Your name, your form, and attributes can only be ascertained through the process of devotional service. And when one is engaged in such devotional service only for the purpose of satisfying the Supreme Personality of Godhead, then he is rewarded. He is benedicted with spiritual vision, with spiritual understanding, to be able to understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Even Arjuna, in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna tells Arjuna that you are able to see me. He had displayed the universal form to Arjuna to see. And Krishna is telling Arjuna that you cannot even see this form, the universal form, unless I give you divine eyes. So even such an intimate devotee, such an exalted Vaishnava like Arjuna, Krishna had to give him divine eyes. Krishna had to award him divine vision to enable him see the universal form of the Lord, which is considered material, it's considered temporary. Yet, Krishna had to give Arjuna divine vision to see that form. What to speak of his eternally transcendental form. Swayam Bhagavan Krishna. Swayam Bhagavan Krishna Aditya Nandamaja Rashikera Rasika Shekhara. Swayam Bhagavan Krishna, Aditya, Nandamajam, Rasika Shekhara. Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Swayam Bhagavan Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. No one is equal to him. No one is greater than him. And he is the abode of all rasas. Rasika Shekhara. Rasika Shekhara means he is the epitome of all rasas, is the embodiment of all rasas. And even though he is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he still agrees to become the son of Nanda Maharaj, Nandat Manjar. He agrees to become the son of Nanda Maharaj. So Krishna, even though no one can surpass him, no one can equal him, still he is subservient to his devotee. When the devotee renders very nice service, when a devotee satisfied Krishna nicely, Krishna awards him the vision to see him, to understand him, to know him to the degree of the surrender of the devotee. And that is what all of us have to do. We have to pursue the path of sense purification. We have to pursue the process, constantly trying to purify our senses. It is by purifying the senses that the Lord will reveal himself to us. In fact, it is said in this material world, there are two activities. Admendriya pritivancha tare bali karma, Krishna driya icha dare prema namaha. There are two activities, love and lust. Devotional service means love for the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And material service means lust for our senses. So there is always a choice for a living entity. Either we engage in amendriya, the gratification of our senses, which ultimately leads us to lust, or we engage in the activities that are meant for Krishna's sense pleasure, Krishna's pleasure. And that path leads to love of Godhead. So activities that allow us to gratify our senses is the path of lust, the path of contamination, and the path of entanglement. And the activities that are directed towards Krishna's pleasure, towards the pleasure of Krishna's senses, are a path that leads to love of Godhead, a path that leads to freedom from this material world. So therefore, one has to choose one of these paths, whether the path of sense enjoyment or this path of Krishna's enjoyment. In fact, in a letter to Satyabhama Devidasi, Srila Prabhupada writes There are always two things standing side by side: Maya and Krishna. Approaching Krishna means devotional service, and approaching Maya means sense gratification. Our duty is therefore to be very, very careful that we do not follow the path of sense gratification. In fact, Srila Prabhupada, he said that the greatest challenge or the greatest poison for the living entity is our personal ambition. When we engage in activities for our personal ambition, for our personal satisfaction, for our sense gratification, Srila Prabhupada says that is the greatest of poison that would contaminate the living entity. But if we take to the path of Krishnandindriya, of always acting for Krishna's pleasure, then we can purify these senses and we can actually taste the sweetness of Krishna consciousness. In the 10th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, the process of purification is described. Kalena snana sochabyam samskarai tapesya jnaya sudyanti dhanai santustya dravyani admama vidyayaha. Now, by the passing of time, land and other material possessions are purified. By bathing, the body is purified. By purificatory ceremonies, samskaras, birth is purified. By austerity, the senses are purified. By worship and offer of charity to the Brahmanas, material possessions are purified. By satisfaction, the mind is purified. And by the process of self-realization or Krishna consciousness, the soul is purified. So these are different processes by which different things can be purified. With time, land and other material possessions are purified. By bathing, the body is purified. By samskara process, breath is purified. By austerity, the senses are purified. By worship and offer of gifts, charity to the Brahmanas, material possessions are purified. By satisfaction, the mind becomes purified. And by self-realization, or by the process of Krishna consciousness, the soul is purified. So according to Shastric injunction, or according to Vedic civilization, everything can be purified. Unless we purify our existence, unless we purify our possessions, unless we purify things around us, they will always infect us. They will always contaminate our consciousness and bring us back to a very low platform of consciousness. Bring us to a platform of always thinking that we are the enjoyers. That is what Srila Prabhupada describes as self-ambition. And he says that is very, very poisonous. So in order to free oneself from this poisonous path. One must purify his existence. One must purify his possessions. One must purify everything around him. And of course, even higher than that is that one has to purify his soul. And that purification comes about, is effected by taking to a process of Krishna consciousness. So Srila Prabhupada mentions in the purport that when the senses are purified by the process of hearing, chanting, remembering, and worshiping the lotus feet of the deity, the holy deity, the Lord reveals himself proportionately to the advancement of the quality of devotional service performed by the devotee. So the process of hearing, the process of chanting, the process of remembering, the process of worshiping the lotus feet of the Lord, these processes, as enumerated by Prahlad Maharaj in the 7th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, is actually meant for our benefit. It is not for the benefit of the Lord. Devotional service is for the benefit of the living entity. Whether we perform devotional service or not, Krishna is always enjoying his eternal potency, Ladini Shakti. But when we engage in devotional service, when we engage in activities of bhakti, it is actually for our own benefit. It is meant for our purification. It is meant for our elevation. It is actually meant for our liberation, freedom from the material world. So therefore, hearing, chanting, remembering is an opportunity for purifying the soul. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, it is mentioned, Shrivantam Swakata Krishna Punya Shravanam Kirtanaha, that the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the super soul in the heart of the living entity, who is the truthful, the benefactor of the truthful devotee, cleanses the desire for material enjoyment from the heart of the devotee, who develops the urge to hear the transcendental messages, which are virtues in themselves. So hearing Srimad Bhagavatam, hearing Bhagavad Gita, hearing the messages of Chaitanya Charitamrita, hearing the holy names, these are virtues in themselves. These are messages that can help us to become purified. So this process of hearing every day is an opportunity to actually purify the self. And when the self is purified, one can experience the Lord. One can experience the presence of Krishna even within ourselves, because Krishna is situated within ourselves. Sarvasyas chaham hridip sanivisto matasmriti gyanam apohanam cha. Sarvasya chaham, Krishna is seated within the heart. Hriday sanivisto, he is seated there, but we are not feeling his presence. What to say, seeing him, we are not able to, because of impurities. So by following the process, the purificatory process, as enumerated by Srimad Bhagavatam, one can become purified, and one can actually have the opportunity to perceive, to feel the presence of the Lord. Sarvo padivimrum niktam tat paratwe nandrimalam hrisike esa hrisike na sevanam bhakti ochate. Devotional service means engaging our senses in the loving service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Devotional service means directing the activities of our senses to the Lord. That is what that is the process the acharyas have given us. The Acharyas has given us the process by which we can purify these senses, we can engage these senses, we can actually experience the Lord by these activities. And so devotional service is so important, so very important, because that is the process. That is actually the only process that can bring us closer to the Lord. When Chaitanya Mahaprabhu met the two brothers, Rupa Goswami and Anupama, at Prayag, he was so happy to see them. He was so ecstatic when he saw Rupa Goswami and Anupama. They had traveled all the way from Bengal to meet with him at Prayag or Allahabad. So at that time, there was this Gopal Bhatt. No, it's Vallabhat Bhattacharya. Vallabhat Bhattacharya had come to meet the Lord, and they are engaged in very, very intense discussion on devotional service. In fact, when Sanatana Goswami and when Rupa Goswami and Anupama, they saw the Lord, they paid obeisances at a distance, and with bunches of grass in their mouth, they were offering prayers to Lord Chaitanya. That famous prayer that we say every day, Namo Mahavadanyaya, Krishna Prema Pradayate, Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya, Namini Gaura Tvize Namaha. This prayer was coined by Rupa Goswami in the presence of his brother Anupama, his junior brother Anupama. And this happened in Prayag. When they came to meet Lord Chaitanya in Prayag, they paid obeisances at a distance with grasses in their mouth, and they were offering this prayer and other prayers to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. At that time, Vallabha Bhattacharya came to the scene, and then he was attracted to these brothers. But when he wanted to approach them, they started running away. They don't want Vallabha Bhattacharya to come close to them. So Vallabha Bhattacharya asked Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, why are these people running away from me? Why? Then Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, in a very sarcastic manner, said, they are very fallen souls. They have been associating with very fallen class of people, so they consider themselves very fallen, and they don't want to be touched by such a highly elevated personality like you, who is both from a Brahminical family and an aristocratic family. They don't want to come close to you. So Vallabha Bhattacharya was surprised. And then because he saw that Rupa Goswami and Anupama, they were chanting the holy names very nicely, very sweetly, very loudly. He was appreciating how they were chanting the holy names of the Lord. Yet, they were not allowing anybody to come close to them. And even Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself, he described them as very low people, very degraded people, and that is why they are running away from them. So Vallabha Bhattacharya, he quoted a verse from the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is saying that no matter how fallen somebody is, but if that person is constantly chanting the names of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, it should be understood that such a person is even superior to Brahmanas who have performed all kinds of sacrifices, who have visited all the holy places, who have read all the scriptures. Vallabha Bhattacharya quoted that verse to kind of disprove Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's statement that these two brothers are fallen souls. And when he quoted that verse, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was very pleased with him. He was very pleased. He understood that Vallabha Bhattacharya was really a very exalted devotee because he's not seeing externally, he's seeing internally. So at that time, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu complemented Vallabha Bhattacharya by also quoting another verse. And what was the verse? He says, Bhagavad Bhakti Hinasya Jatir Shastram Japastapa Apranisheva Dehasya Mandanam Lokanam Manjanam. That for a person who is devoid of devotional service, birth in a great family or nation, knowledge of the revealed scriptures, performance of austerities and penances, and chanting of Vedic mantras are all like ornaments on a dead body. Such ornaments simply serve the concocted pleasures of the general populace. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu quoted this verse to support, as a complement, to support Vallabha Bhattacharya's statement that Rupa Goswami and his brother Anupama could not be accepted as fallen souls because they were chanting the holy names very loudly, very sweetly, and constantly. So Vallabha Bhattacharya could understand these are very exalted souls. How can the Lord say they are fallen souls? And when he quoted this verse, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu complimented him by saying that, yes, if one takes a great birth in devotional, in a great family, in a great nation, one has studied all the Vedas, one has performed all kinds of austerities, one is conversant in chanting Vedic mantras. If there is no devotional service, Bhagavad Bhakti Hinasya, if there is no devotional service, all these decorations, they are compared to decorations on a dead body. No matter how much we decorate a dead body, he cannot see it. He cannot appreciate it. It is only for the living. It's for the population, the people around. They can see that this dead body is nicely put in a golden coffin, is nicely given some golden jewelry. He's put in a very special dress. The dead man cannot see. His eyes are closed. The soul is gone. It's just a lump of matter. He cannot see anything on him. But people who are not in knowledge, they spend huge sums of money to decorate the dead body just for the pleasure of the general populace. It's actually not for the pleasure of the departed soul because he cannot even see it. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is comparing activities that are devoid of devotional service, activities that are not connected to Krishna, as decorations of the dead body. So that means we must make sure that everything we do is connected to Krishna. If it is not connected to Krishna, then it is nothing but a decorated dead body. So Prabhupada also mentions in the purport that one should not expect the Lord to be an order supplying agent who must be present before us as soon as we desire to see him. We must be ready to undergo the prescribed devotional duties, following the path shown by the predecessor acharyas in discipline succession from Brahma, Narada, and similar authorities. Just as at night, no one can order the sun to appear, no one can order the Supreme Personality of Godhead to appear. At nighttime, if you want to see the sun, you have to wait until the appropriate time comes when the sun will rise in the east. Then you can see the sun. You cannot order the sun to appear in the middle of the night. So similarly, the Supreme Personality of Godhead is completely independent. He's Swarat. And because he's completely independent, he is not under the authority of anyone. So no one can order the Supreme Personality of Godhead. No one should expect the Lord to do things the way he wants it. No. In history, we have one demon by the name Pondraka. Pondraka used to live in Kasi or Varanasi. He was a friend of Kashraj, the king of Varanasi. And under the influence of some people, he created 2 extra hands, some artificial hands, and he attached it to his body. And then he also carried the insignia, the weapons of the Lord, conch shell, lotus flower, imitated disc, and club. He will carry these things all around the city of Kasi. And people were calling him Vasudev. And he was acknowledging that. He was happy to be called Vasudev. As if that wasn't enough, he sent a message to Dwaraka because he heard about Krishna, Swayam Bhagavan Krishna in Dwaraka. So Pandaraka sent a message. He sent a messenger to Dwaraka to tell Krishna that Krishna should give up his insignia, his Vishnu items, and come to Kasi to surrender unto him. So in the history of the universe, such a puffed up demon called Pandraka, he was ordering the Supreme Personality of Godhead to give up his Vishnu symbols or insignia and then come and surrender to him, that he is the actual Vishnu and Krishna is the fake Vishnu. So the messenger went to Dwaraka. At that time, Krishna was in the assembly in Dwaraka. It was a Sabha. And the messenger came into the presence of everyone. And then Krishna asked him, what is your message? And he announced this message. When he announced the message, Ugrasena and other personalities, they laugh very loudly because they know that this fake Pundaraka Vasudev in Kasi was just looking for trouble by sending a messenger to Dwaraka to tell Krishna to give up his insignia and come to surrender unto him. Anyway, Krishna made a jest of it. Krishna joked over the whole matter and then told the Yadus that there is some service for me to do in Kashi. So I am going to Kashi. Some rascal has invited me, just like the frog invites the snake to come and swallow him. So this frog-like Pundraka in Kasi has invited me. And I am Shama Sundra. I am blackish like the snake. I am the snake of time. I will go to Kashi and I will devour him. So it is described, Tasuryo Koti Pratimam Sudarshanam Jwala Manaham Falayanala Prabham Swate Jasakam Kabuko Tarodoshihi. The Lord went to Kashi. He released his Sudarshan chakra. And this disc, which blazes like millions of suns, it destroyed everything in Kasi. It chopped off the head of Pundraka, killed the king Kasraj, who was supporting Pundraka with military, and burned everything down in Kashi. In fact, even the demigods, they were afraid of what was happening in Kashi. So as Prabhupada said, we cannot order the Supreme Personality of God, and the Lord is not our personal agent. Our duty is to surrender unto him. But demonic people like Pundraka, they dare order the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and the result is that they become destroyed. So instead of asking for our destruction by ordering the Supreme Personality of Godhead, we should engage in a loving service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And that is what will bring us closer and closer to the Supreme Lord. The Lord himself says in Bhagavad Gita, Bhaktyamam abhijanate yavanyas tyasmi tatwata ha. Tato mam tatwato gyantwa vishate tat anantaram. One can understand me as I am only by devotional service. And when one is in full consciousness of me by such devotion, then he can enter into the kingdom of God. So Krishna has given us a formula by which he can be understood. Krishna has given us the process by which we can understand him to a certain degree, the degree that we surrender unto him. So it's a question of surrender. The more surrendered the soul is, the more Krishna reveals himself. In fact, the whole process of Krishna consciousness is the process of revelation. So the more we please the more the Lord reveals himself. So that is the process, and Krishna is inviting all of us to engage in this process, and the Lord will reveal himself as we become more and more surrendered unto him. And at this note, I would like to end here. If there are any comments or questions, they are welcome. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Sade Prabhu, are you there?
Yeah, go ahead. Yes, go ahead.
No, just go ahead. Just go ahead.
No.
Take it. Take it.
Well, I have a question.
All right, Prabhu. Go ahead.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much for the class, as always. Very beautiful. Prabhuji, I, with my little mind,
Yeah.
and this mind is very restless, it's always thinking, and oftentimes thinking of something stupid. And I am thinking about something said of Krishna in the invocation of the Sri Upanishad.
Okay.
That Krishna is complete and perfect, and so many unlimited parts and parcels coming out of him. They are also equally complete and perfect.
Yes.
And Krishna is Atmaram.
Mm.
He's always happy within himself. And therefore, we being parts and parcel, we should also be happy within ourselves.
Okay.
But we are not. So how then do we understand what the invocation of Upanishad is saying? Because every living entity wants to be happy, but we are not getting the happiness because we have to surrender to, like you say, we have to surrender to Krishna. And that also brings me to two things. We have sugar cane, which is very tasty. We have gulab jamun, which is very tasty. But with gulab jamun, whichever part you bite on, it's sweet. Sugar cane, some parts sweet, some parts are not sweet. And I think Krishna is all sweet.
Mm.
And if Krishna is all sweet, like gulab jamun, how come that we are touching part of himself, which is the material nature?
Yeah.
And we have to suffer for that. So if you can please help me with this seemingly confusing and contradictory statements.
Yeah. Thank you for the question. Krishna is complete for sure, and the living entities that are emanating from him are also complete. That is a fact. Otherwise, how do we also reproduce? How do we also create? How do we also do many things? Because that completeness of the Lord, we have inherited part of that completeness of the Lord. And because the completeness of the Lord is present in every living entity, we are able to do many things on our own, like procreation, like creating different objects, and so on. But we must also understand that the completeness of the Lord is manifested in the spiritual world. In the material world, that completeness is very, very minimal, because the material energy, even though it's also an energy of the Lord, but it has its own inebrities. It is designed to have these inebrities because it is designed for a purpose. The completeness of the Lord, the completeness of the living entities can be found in the spiritual world. Those living entities in the spiritual world, they are completely satisfied. They are completely immersed in joyous devotional service, and they do not experience what we are experiencing. But those of us who have given up that spiritual environment, and we find ourselves in the material environment, then even though the material world, the universes are also complete in themselves because they can reproduce many things, but there are some limitations. The material world has limitations. That is how it is designed. The spiritual world, there are no limitations. The material world, there are limitations. So therefore, once the living entity finds himself in the material world, he is also affected by the limitations of the material world. But those Nitya Siddhas who are present in the spiritual world, they have no idea of this material world. They have no experience of this material world. For them, they are experiencing the unlimited nature of the spiritual world, the completeness of Krishna in the spiritual world. But those of us who are here, we are limited. We are imprisoned. And therefore, once we are imprisoned within the material environment, we are limited. And because the material world is actually serving as a reformation ground. It's a reformation ground. It's a training ground. It is a place to recover our consciousness. So therefore, it is designed to give us trouble. And Krishna himself says it, Du Kalayam Asaswatam. Krishna, he is the knower of everything. He knows the nature of the spiritual energy. He knows the nature of the material energy, because all are coming from him. And Krishna is telling us in Bhagavad Gita, Du Kalayam Asaswatam. That means the material world is complete in its own way. It's complete with plenty of problems. It is complete with all the inabilities. And so if you are in this material world, you should be ready to experience the completeness of the material world in its misery. But if you want to experience the blissful nature of the Supreme Lord, then you better remain in the spiritual sky. So those Nitya siddhas who are in the spiritual sky, they have no experience of what we are going through here. And those of us who are Nitya Baddhas, we have no experience of what is going on in the spiritual world. And that is why we are so attached to this material world. And we have an experience, actually it is said that if we just have a glimpse, the day we shall taste the sweetness of Krishna, immediately we will lose interest in this material world. If you taste that sweetness, that complete sweetness of Krishna, we will lose interest in this material world. And that is why Rupa Goswami says, you want to go and see Shamasundara at Vamsivat? You want to see the tree-bending form of Shamasundara at Vamsivat? When you see that form of Krishna at Vamsivat, you cannot return. You cannot. So, when we are connected to Krishna by the process of devotional service, and if by the mercy of Krishna, by the mercy of the devotees, we have a drop of the taste, we have a drop of Krishna consciousness, we experience the bliss of Krishna consciousness, we would immediately want to get out of the material world. In fact, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said that because I'm not Krishna conscious, that's why I am happy living in the material world. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said that because I am not Krishna conscious, that is why I am happy living in the material world. But we know Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he was fully Krishna conscious. He is Krishna himself. But he just gave the example that a living entity is happy living in the material world because he's not Krishna conscious. He said, if I were Krishna conscious, I would leave immediately and get back to the spiritual world. So this situation can be rectified when we begin to taste the nectar of Krishna's names, the nectar of Krishna's qualities, the nectar of Krishna's pastimes. When we begin to taste this, then we can actually see the completeness of Krishna. Otherwise, material world is limited. Material world is equipped with troubles, with difficulties. And so long as we are here, we cannot experience the completeness of Krishna. I don't know whether I have answered your question.
Yes, you did. But in the purport, I've been having this question in my mind for a long time, and we've attempted discussing this topic on this platform a couple times. But since you're here, maybe I better ask because it's also appearing in the purport.
Okay.
Where Prabhupada is saying that Krishna has stated in the Bhagavad Gita that he can only be understood by devotional service.
Yeah.
Bhaktiya Mama Vijananti.
Yep.
Now, Prabhupada also referenced the disciplic succession.
Okay.
Now, if someone, no, let me put it this way. Is it possible for someone to practice real devotional service without following directly the disciplic succession known to us as ISKCON devotees? Is it possible for such a practitioner of God realization to realize God if that person is performing devotional service, but he or she is not linked to the disciplic succession that we belong to?
Yes, there are 4 bona fide disciplic successions, as mentioned in the 6th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam. the disciplic succession coming from Brahma, the disciplic succession coming from Shiva, the disciplic succession coming from Lakshmi, and the disciplic succession coming from the Kumaras. These are described as the bona fide disciplic successions. All others are described as upper sampradayas. They are not bona fide. So if any person is linked to any of these four sampradayas, Shri Sampradaya, Rudra Sampradaya, Kumara Sampradaya, or Brahma Sampradaya, if you belong to any of these four sampradayas, you are eligible to know to some degree the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and you are eligible to return home back to Godhead. It's not only the Brahma Sampradaya that members of the Brahma Sampradayas alone are qualified to go back home back to Godhead. No, the other three sampradayas, members of the other three sampradayas are also qualified to go back home because these four sampradayas are authorized and they are all linked to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And so any of these sampradayas, following any of these sampradayas will take you back home, back to Godhead.
Well, that is what I have heard. That is what I have also read from the scriptures. So you are speaking the scriptures, but I'm still doubting if that is the case.
Yeah.
Of course, we cannot doubt the scriptures, but I'm also wondering, because there is a personality in history called Saint Teresa.
Okay.
Saint Teresa of Avila. This lady, nobody knows her to be belonging to any four bona fide sampradayas.
Okay.
She actually belonged to the Christian tradition. But this particular person describes her encounter with the Supreme Lord. And in fact, I studied this in college, where this lady will have vision and visitations of the Lord, and she describes the Lord. And the description of the Lord is very much, if you are a devotee, you know the description is Lord Krishna.
Yeah.
The description and the way it is drawn, she describes, and the personality is drawn. It's like a small boy with a walking stick, leaning on the walking stick. And she describes that whenever she has such a visitation, the joy, the pleasure is 1,000,000 times more pleasurable than, excuse me to say, orgasm. And this person, that's why she is referred to as saint. So if these four sampradayas are the only sampradayas, are the only disciplines by which one can realize God, then there are some questions, because there are lots of saints. I was talking to Arichakra Prabhu the other day. There are lots of saints from the Christian Greek tradition who were so devoted, and they were performing devotional service, but they did not belong to any of the four sampradayas. So
yes.
this is,
yes, I will say something. I will say something. Maybe some other devotees may also have something to say.
Okay.
But let us look at it from this angle, that in Vrindavan, sampradayas are not required. It is said that the devotees in Vrindavan, they don't have any sampradaya to follow. Because Krishna becomes their sampradaya, Krishna becomes their guru.
Okay. That's interesting.
It was also mentioned that Punamasi and Yogamaya, they also help Krishna in Vrindavan in linking the residents of Vrindavan. Punamasi and Yogamaya. Sometimes it is said that Radharani is the guru of Vrindavan. So there are different acharyas of different explanations. So these people who may seemingly not be connected to any of these four sampradayas, there is a possibility that they are such exalted souls, they don't need these sampradayas. Krishna becomes their guru, or Srimati Radharani becomes their guru, or Punamasi becomes their guru, or Yogamaya becomes their guru. And in that sense, we cannot limit any of these authorities. We cannot limit Krishna as guru. He can be guru to anybody, anywhere, anytime, because he's a super soul. He's actually the first guru, Chaita Guru. Krishna is Chaita Guru. He is the Adi Guru, and he's also Chaita Guru. He's the original guru, and he's resident in our hearts. In practically every living entity's heart, Krishna is there as Chaita Guru. So if any particular person is rendering such nice service, nice realization, the Chaita Guru can link him up with the Adi Guru. Or the Chaita Guru can link him up with Yogamaya or Punamasi or Radharani or any of these authorities. So therefore, it is possible that without necessarily becoming part of these four established sampradayas, if one is on that elevated platform, he can still have access to the Chaita Guru in the heart, which eventually links him up with Krishna or Srimati Radharani or Yogamaya or Punamasi, and that personality can still go back home, back to Godhead. Just as the residents of Vrindavan, they don't need any sampradaya to go back home, back to Godhead, because they are very exalted. So all these souls, we can begin to see them as very exalted personalities, like this Saint Teresa. Who knows? She might be a gopi who appeared in a particular place to give an association. Who knows? In fact, Srila Prabhupada said that many of these devotees who took birth in different locations of the world, he said, they are actual devotees of the Lord that were placed in different locations, just waiting to join the Hare Krishna movement. They were just waiting to assist Srila Prabhupada. So Krishna places different souls in different locations, and depending on their relationship with Krishna, the exaltness of their consciousness, they are in touch with Krishna wherever they are. So the four sampradayas, we can say they are meant for the conditioned souls of this material world. The four sampradayas are for the conditioned souls, Nitya Baddhas in this material world. For the Nitya Siddhas who come into this material world, they don't need these four sampradayas because they are already in touch with Krishna. That is what I can say in that regard. Other devotees may have some other realizations, perceptions, or tikas.
Well, thank you so much, Prabhuji. And we have Harichakra Prabhu's hand up, but before we go to Harichakra Prabhu, I must say that I am so thankful for your explanation, and I'm also really thankful to their lordships, because as I was thinking about these thoughts, my understanding was pretty much the explanation you've given. And therefore, I feel very much happy within myself that what I was envisioning is actually not a speculation, but it is a possibility. So thank you so much. Harichakra Prabhu, please you may unmute.
Yeah. Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Hare Mo.
Dandava Pranam. All glory to Gurudev, all glory to Prabhupada, and all glory to you.
All glory to you too.
Thank you, as usual. When you disseminate this message, then it's like you bring us back to the root. So thank you very much.
Prabhupada's mercy, Gurudev's mercy.
I was just thinking about the answer you gave to start this first question about the invocation of the Upanishad.
Okay.
Well, you explain it to my understanding to some extent, but I still want a little bit clarification, because if you read that statement, it specifically says that the Lord is perfectly complete, and that all emanations, and he made reference to this material where he said all emanations that are coming from him, such as this phenomenal world, are perfectly equipped.
Yes.
Are complete whole. So
yes.
that little portion, I want a little bit more clarification.
Yes, they are completely equipped as complete wholes. See, since the Lord created the material world, he does not add anything to it. From time immemorial, but the material world is fully equipped with everything that is needed. And we cannot even perceive when the material world was created. We have an idea, and we say, Lord Brahma's lifespan. And now we say the Lord Brahma's day is just noon since the creation, just half day. So, but since that time, the material world has everything that is needed. It has everything to sustain itself because it is coming from the complete whole, which is Krishna. So that completeness means that whatever is needed to sustain itself and sustain the living entities in this material world is already provided. So because it is coming from the complete whole, therefore it is also complete in itself, but that does not mean that there are no inebrities. That does not mean that there are no difficulties. That does not mean that is as complete as the spiritual world. No, the material world is complete according to its function, but it's not as complete as the spiritual world. The spiritual world is excellently complete, but the material world is also complete because it's coming from the complete whole. But the completeness is that it has everything needed for sustaining life in this creation for billions and trillions and zillions of years. So it's complete. Is that okay?
Yeah. Thank you. Right. Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. And a little bit of what do we call it? A little bit to add to Dave's second question, the explanation you were giving.
Okay.
We could see that in a lot of scriptures, there are some specific and some rules that help us develop gradually towards the goal of life.
Yeah.
So, like biblically, Jesus was saying that unless a man be baptized in water,
Yeah.
in the name of the Father, of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit, he will not be called, he will not fit to enter the kingdom of heaven.
That's
now,
right.
the same Jesus, when he was on the cross, this thief who was on the cross with him,
Yeah.
the thief had not been baptized in water,
That's right.
but simply because the thief surrendered there and then, he told him, "Today you shall be with me in paradise," which
That's
is
right.
which is violating the principle he himself has said.
That's right.
So it could be possible, like you said,
Yeah.
that these sampradayas are there to train us on sadhana bhakti, how we can gradually be
Elevate
uplifted
ourselves.
to the
Yeah.
top.
Yeah.
But if somebody somehow or the other develops some pure love in the heart, that he doesn't have to go through this systematic step,
Exactly.
then maybe somehow or the other, the Lord himself says, "Okay, yes, come on, you are ready, come, I take
That's
you
true.
home."
Yes.
So thank you very much. Thank you. Like we said,
Hare
thank you
Krishna.
very much.
Hare
Hare
Krishna.
Krishna.
Any other comment or question?
Yeah. Anyone else with any comment, question, realizations? Well, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much, Prabhuji, like always. Each and every time you speak, we learn so much. It's interesting how, as devotees for this number of years, we know some things, and we even know a particular text that is being discussed, that we've already discussed it before, but whenever it's discussed by another person or even same person in another day, you learn so many things,
That's
many
true.
new things.
That's true.
Because you could speak on this same topic tomorrow and we will learn
It'll go a
something
different
new.
direction. Yes, true.
Yes.
That's a fact.
So,
That's a fact.
so we thank you so much, and we thank the devotees for their participation and love for hearing Krishna Katha. So at this point, we're going to humbly request all the devotees to kindly unmute, and we all chant Hare Krishna Mahamantra to express our appreciation to our revered speaker, His Grace Srivas Vanachari Prabhu Jai.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare.
Krishna, Hare Hare.
Hare Rama, Rama Rama. Tarubhyascha kripa sindhubhyascha vasishtani paramebhyo Vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. His Grace Srivas Vanachari Prabhu ki
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Thank you so much for the class. Thank you.
Hare Krishna, Yasoda Mai.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much.
Prabhu, you are the host.